Power does not change people. It reveals them. Most of us grow up believing a comforting story, that good people become bad when power corrupts them, that authority reshapes the heart, that influence slowly turns character into something darker. But the truth is more uncomfortable. Power does not create a new version of you. It removes the barriers that once kept your true priorities hidden. When consequences disappear, when approval is no longer required, when no one in the room can truly challenge you, what remains is not a stronger person. It is a clearer one. In America, we often discover who people are when they fail. But real character is exposed in a different moment. You discover who you are when you finally do not have to be afraid, when your job is secure, when your reputation is protected, and when your influence is unquestioned. That is the moment your heart becomes visible. This is not a message about politicians, corporations, or institutions. It is about people. Because every person who holds power, whether in business, government, ministry, family, or community, eventually reaches a place where restraint is no longer external. It becomes internal. And what power reveals in that moment is far more important than what power allows you to achieve. In America, we like a simple explanation for moral failure. We say power corrupts. We say influence changes people. We say success slowly turns good intentions into selfish ambition. But that story protects us from a more difficult truth. If power is the cause, then character is not the responsibility, and it allows us to believe that we would behave differently if we were in the same position. But power does not install new desires. It exposes old ones. Before authority arrives, most people are restrained by something. Fear of losing a job, fear of public opinion, fear of embarrassment, fear of rejection. Those restraints quietly shape behavior. When power removes those restraints, it does not create selfishness. It reveals whether selfishness was already there. This is why some people become more generous when they gain influence, and others become more entitled. The difference is not power. The difference is the heart that power uncovers. Power does something very specific to the human heart. Not suddenly, not dramatically, but quietly. And almost always in the same three ways. First, power reduces fear. When you no longer worry about being fired, when you no longer fear being excluded, when your position feels protected, your behavior becomes less filtered. You do not become braver. You become less restrained. The second change is even more dangerous. Power increases your ability to justify yourself. Decisions that would once have troubled your conscience begin to sound reasonable. You start to use larger language to cover smaller compromises. For the greater good. For stability. For progress. For the mission. Power gives you better vocabulary for ignoring discomfort. Not because you became dishonest, but because you became confident enough to explain yourself. And the third change is the most damaging. Power creates distance from consequences. You approve the decision. Someone else lives with the result. You sign the policy. Someone else absorbs the cost. You move the strategy forward. Someone else carries the pressure. Over time, the heart becomes insulated. Not cruel, just removed. And when distance grows between decision and pain, the human heart slowly loses its sensitivity to both. This is not what makes people evil. It is what makes them unaware. And unaware hearts are far more dangerous than angry ones. When power arrives, love becomes visible. Before influence, most people can hide their priorities behind limitation. We blame schedules. We blame budgets. We blame authority above us. But when you finally gain the ability to decide, what you protect becomes clear. Power reveals what you truly love. Do you protect truth or outcomes? Do you protect people or performance? Do you protect integrity or image? Well, in American culture, we admire results. We celebrate growth, impact, and scale. But love is not measured by what you accomplish. It is measured by what you are willing to sacrifice. When power enters your life, it does not ask what you believe. It exposes what you value most when belief becomes inconvenient. And whatever you love most will eventually receive your greatest loyalty. Power also reveals something quieter and far more controlling. It reveals what you are most afraid to lose, not what you talk about in interviews, not what you post about online, not what you claim matters to you, but what silently governs your decisions. For some people, it is reputation. For others, it is relevance. For others, it is access, approval, influence, or control. In American leadership culture, fear rarely looks like panic, and it looks like protection. You protect relationships that keep you powerful. You protect alliances that keep you safe. You protect narratives that keep you admired. And slowly, without realizing it, your fear becomes your guide. You do not ask, "What is right?" You begin to ask, "What will this cost me?" Power does not create that question. It simply gives you enough room to obey it. Whatever you fear losing the most will eventually become the one thing you cannot disobey. And that is how fear quietly replaces conviction. Not because you stopped believing in truth, but because something else became more expensive than it. Power also reveals whose voice actually guides your decisions. Before authority, most people listen widely. They ask questions. They seek perspective. They remain open to correction. But when power grows, the noise around you changes. You begin to hear three kinds of voices most often. The first is professional advice. Smart, strategic, risk-aware, necessary. The second is public opinion. Polls, reactions, headlines, social pressure. And the third voice is quieter. Conscience. For people of faith, it is the voice of God. Power does not silence that voice. It simply makes it easier to ignore. Because advice tells you what is possible. Public opinion tells you what is popular. But conscience tells you what is right. And those three rarely agree. Here is what power reveals. It shows whether God truly leads your decisions or merely appears in them. Many leaders in America still pray. They still reference faith. They still speak about values. But the real question is not whether God is mentioned. Well, the real question is whether God is allowed to disagree with you. Power exposes whether faith shapes your direction or simply decorates your leadership. Because when a voice challenges your advantage, your timeline, or your control, power reveals immediately which voice you are willing to disappoint. One of the clearest things power exposes is how you treat people who offer you nothing in return. Not influence, not funding, not connections, not visibility, just need. Before authority, most people must be attentive. They depend on cooperation. They depend on goodwill. They depend on others. But when power arrives, dependence disappears. And with it, something else often fades. Attention. Power reveals whether people become partners or assets. Whether faces turn into categories, whether stories turn into statistics, or whether suffering becomes an inconvenience to scheduling. In American culture, efficiency is deeply respected. We celebrate leaders who move fast, scale quickly, and streamline complexity. But heaven does not evaluate how efficiently you managed people. It evaluates how personally you treated them. Power shows whether you slow down for those who cannot accelerate you, whether you protect those who cannot protect your reputation, whether you listen to those who cannot amplify your platform. The real test is not how you treat people who help you succeed. It is how you treat people who quietly slow you down. Because power reveals whether your leadership is built on usefulness or on dignity. And the human heart cannot hide that distinction for very long. Most people who fail under authority did not begin with bad intentions. Oh, they began unprepared. In America, we train leaders exceptionally well. We teach strategy. We teach communication. We teach crisis management, growth, negotiation, and performance. But almost no one is trained to carry power without letting it reshape the soul. We teach people how to win. We rarely teach them how to remain honest when winning becomes normal. The first danger is success itself. When your decisions keep working, when outcomes consistently reward your choices, when people praise your judgment again and again, self-examination slowly feels unnecessary. You stop asking, "Was this right?" and begin asking only, "Did this work?" The second danger is silence. As influence grows, disagreement becomes expensive for others. Oh, not because leaders demand loyalty, but because people quietly learn what kind of disagreement is welcome and what kind is not. Feedback becomes filtered. Truth becomes softened. Risk becomes managed. Not to protect you from error, to protect others from consequence. And the third danger is isolation. Not physical isolation, moral isolation. When fewer people can challenge you, when fewer people are willing to disappoint you, when fewer people can safely tell you no, your inner world begins to shrink. Good people do not suddenly become dangerous. They slowly lose mirrors. And without honest reflection, the human heart becomes confident long before it becomes careful. That is how character erodes under power, not through rebellion, through comfort. Here is the part many leaders quietly misunderstand. But God is far more concerned with who power is turning you into than with what power is helping you accomplish. In American culture, success is often treated as evidence of approval. If the organization grows, if the numbers improve, if the influence expands, if the platform becomes larger, we assume something must be going right. But spiritual maturity is not measured by outcomes. It is measured by obedience when outcomes become uncertain. For people of faith, leadership is not primarily about protecting a position. It is about protecting the heart. Power will constantly invite you to believe that effectiveness can replace faithfulness, that progress can substitute for integrity, that impact can justify erosion. But God does not measure leadership the way institutions do. He does not evaluate how much you controlled. And He evaluates how well you surrendered. Because authority can expand your reach. Only humility preserves your soul. And this is why power is such a serious spiritual test. Not because power is evil, but because power gives your inner life enough room to finally show itself. God does not compete with your success. He competes with your self-sufficiency. And when power convinces you that you no longer need to listen carefully, no longer need to wait, no longer need to submit, your leadership may grow stronger, while your heart quietly grows smaller. If power truly reveals the heart, then the most honest test is not performance. It is reflection. Here are 5 questions every person in authority should regularly ask. Not publicly, privately. First, if no one would ever find out, would I still make this decision? Not if it would be praised, not if it would succeed, but if it would remain invisible. Second, if doing what is right would cost me influence, would I still choose it? Not in theory, in practice. Third, am I hiding behind the greater good to avoid a smaller obedience? Large language often disguises small compromises. Fourth, who is the last person in my life who can truly say no to me? Not advise, not suggest. Refuse. Fifth, what am I most afraid of losing right now? Because whatever you fear losing the most is quietly shaping more of your leadership than you realize. These questions do not exist to shame leaders. They exist to protect them. Because power does not collapse character. It reveals whether character was ever being protected at all. This message is not only for politicians. In America, power exists everywhere. In boardrooms, in classrooms, in hospitals, in churches, in small businesses, in families. If someone's schedule changes because of you, if someone's income depends on you, if someone's future can be influenced by your approval, you hold power. And most of that power never appears in public. It shows up in performance reviews, in hiring decisions, in promotions, in project approvals, in who gets protected and who gets replaced. Long before anyone stands on a stage, power begins in quiet authority. And that is why the heart must be shaped before influence arrives. Not after. If you wait to build integrity until you are visible, you will discover that visibility is a terrible classroom. Power will not slow down so you can grow. Thus, it will move faster than your character if your character is not already grounded. So if you lead in America today, at any level, do not ask only how to become more effective. Ask how to remain honest. Ask how to remain teachable. Ask how to remain interruptible. Because the greatest danger is not that power will make you cruel. The greatest danger is that power will make you comfortable enough to stop listening. Power does not reveal how strong you are. It reveals how honest your heart is. Long after titles disappear, long after authority changes hands, long after influence fades, what remains is not what you built. It is who you became while building it. The real danger of power is not what it allows you to do to others. It is what it slowly gives you permission to become. When no one is watching, when no one is correcting you, when no one can truly stop you. Power does not expose your talent. It exposes your loves, your fears, your loyalties, your willingness to listen, your courage to remain human when influence tries to make you untouchable. So if you remember only one truth from this message, remember this. Power is not a mirror for your success. It is a mirror for your heart. And the question is not how much authority you will carry in your lifetime. The question is what kind of person your authority will reveal.